Welcome, Seeker. This is timeline 5 of our story. If you wish to start from the very beginning, you will find a link in the description. The dry heat of Cairo was a stark, exhilarating contrast to the damp, gas-lit streets of Britain. Here, the air vibrated with a different kind of energy, the ancient pulse of a civilization steeped in mysticism. The scent of spices and desert dust mingling with the calls of merchants and the distant braying of donkeys. You found yourself here, in this bustling city, alongside a man whose intellectual audaciousness and esoteric pursuits were already becoming legendary. Your own fascination with the unseen currents of the world, and perhaps a shared thirst for knowledge that transcended conventional boundaries, had led you to assume the role of his trusted researcher and chronicler for this expedition. It was the early spring of 1904. Crowley, a man of intense focus and unconventional brilliance, had recently arrived in Cairo on what he ostensibly called a honeymoon, but which you knew was, for him, a pilgrimage into the heart of ancient occultism. His wife, Rose, a woman of keen intellect, and her own deep, if less overt, interest in the mystical, accompanied him. Like Crowley, she had also been a member of the Hermetic Order of the Goldendawn, having delved into its teachings and rituals before their shared disillusionment with its more rigid doctrines led them both away from its formal structures. Her presence on this journey was not for social graces, but for the intellectual pursuit of the esoteric, a silent partner in the search for hidden truths. Crowley had secured a sprawling apartment near the Egyptian Museum, a structure he had, with typical theatrical flair, already begun to magically dub the Temple of the Gods. This grand museum, a repository of millennia of Egyptian secrets, was to be your primary laboratory, a silent witness to the invocations he meticulously prepared. The days melted into a routine of intense study and nocturnal ritual. By day, you would assist Crowley in poring over hieroglyphic texts, translating obscure papyri, and deciphering ceremonial details from rare occult manuscripts. The Egyptian Museum itself became a second home. Its vast, echoing halls, filled with silent statues of pharaohs and gods, sarcophagi gleaming under the desert sun, and the hushed whispers of awed visitors, created an atmosphere ripe for mystical contemplation. The very air within its hallowed walls seemed to vibrate with untold histories, with the presence of entities long dormant, awaiting the right vibration to stir. You walked among relics that had once graced the deepest temples, fragments of a profound understanding that had been fractured by time. By night, in the privacy of the rented apartment, shielded from the prying eyes of colonial society, Crowley began his invocations. He worked with a fervent dedication, driven by a desire to penetrate the veils of existence, to communicate directly with the ancient deities of the Egyptian pantheon. You acted as his scribe, meticulously recording every detail, every chanted phrase, every subtle shift in the atmosphere. He performed rituals to invoke Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and magic, and Horus, the powerful falcon-headed deity, often seen as the embodiment of kingship, protection, and vengeance, a symbol of the divine ruler and the conquering spirit. Crowley believed that direct communion with these forces would unlock deeper truths of existence. It was during one such invocation of Horus that the first anomaly occurred, a subtle tremor in the fabric of your shared reality. Rose, usually composed, began to behave strangely. She would drift into trances during the invocations, her eyes unfocused, murmuring phrases in a language neither you nor Crowley recognized. She claimed in a voice that was not entirely her own, that "they are waiting for you." Crowley, ever the skeptic despite his profound occult leanings, initially dismissed it as fatigue, or perhaps the psychological impact of the rituals. He had always been one to demand empirical evidence, even in the realm of the mystical. But Rose persisted. Her utterances became more frequent, more insistent, and possessed an unsettling conviction. Driven by a newfound unsettling urgency, Crowley began to question her using traditional Golden Dawn methods, a series of direct, testable questions designed to validate or invalidate the source of a psychic communication, to confirm if she was truly a reliable medium. He showed her various depictions of Egyptian deities, demanding she identify the entity that spoke to her. And then, he was stunned. With chilling accuracy, Rose pointed directly, unequivocally to an image of Horus in a book. The validation sent a ripple of excitement through Crowley. He immediately set out for the Egyptian museum, Rose in tow, guiding him with an uncanny precision to a specific gallery. And there, behind a protective barrier, stood the object of her uncanny focus, a painting on wood, ancient and vibrant, depicting the god Horus receiving offerings from a priest. The colors still held a compelling intensity, deep blues, ochres, and reds, bringing the scene to life. This was, more formally, a painted wooden funerary stele, a relic of profound religious significance, used in ancient Egyptian burial practices to commemorate the deceased and ensure their well-being in the afterlife. It was the stele of Ankhefen Khonsu. But the true shock came when Crowley looked at its museum inventory number, clearly visible on a small plaque, 666. A chill ran down his spine, for this number was already his personal magical number, a profound synchronicity that defied all logic. He gazed at the stele with an almost feverish intensity, recognizing its significance, mystically dubbing it the stele of revealing. As his researcher, observing from a slight distance, you felt a peculiar resonance from the stele, a subtle vibratory hum that seemed to reach past your physical senses, directly into your mind. You had studied the esoteric lore of your own time, knowledge of ancient civilizations, the whispers of forgotten technologies. Looking at the stele, you perceived something subtly off about it, something that resonated with an energy older than Egypt itself. The hieroglyphs, while appearing authentically Egyptian, seemed to overlay a deeper, almost geometric pattern, a subtle resonance that spoke of forgotten sacred geometry. The numerical coincidence of 666, to your discerning senses, was not simply a mystical synchronicity for Crowley. It felt like a frequency lock, a specific vibratory harmonic, connected to something far more ancient, perhaps even from a lost civilization. A seed of a profound, unsettling idea began to form in your mind, but you couldn't quite grasp it. The very next day, as you assisted Crowley in further invocations using the stele at the apartment, a profound and terrifying phenomenon occurred. A disembodied voice, clear and resonant yet ethereal, filled the apartment. It was the voice of Aiwass. On the outside, to Crowley, it seemed to speak in a rhythmic, declamatory tone, dictating words, phrases, and concepts that were both alien and deeply profound. Crowley, transfixed, began to transcribe every word, believing it to be Aiwass, a messenger of the god Horus, delivering a new revelation. He was utterly convinced this was the dawn of a new spiritual age, a direct communication from the divine. Yet, for you, the seeker, time seemed to stretch and dilate. What passed as mere seconds externally for Crowley and Rose became an extended, piercing conversation within the confines of your own mind. The voice of Aiwass was not simply dictating, it was interacting, its presence, a crushing weight of knowledge and power. Hear me, seeker, Aiwass resonated directly within your consciousness, a voice that bypassed the ears and settled into the very marrow of your bones. The currents of time are but shadows upon a deeper reality. This vessel, this stele of revealing, is but a lens, a fragment of a truth you seek, a key to the archive, to the great memory. The entity's words were cryptic, fragmented, yet each phrase ignited a spark of recognition within your specialized temporal perception. Your mind raced, drawing connections. The voice continued, its pronouncements echoing across what felt like eons. The pattern, the equation. It is woven into the very fabric, not of this age, not of this dust. The green fire, the words of form, dispersed, scattered, but the echo remains. The resonance calls. From the depths, where the sun once fell. The green fire, the words of form, where the sun once fell. These fragments, disjointed to any other, slammed together in your mind. This was not merely an angelic messenger, as Crowley perceived. This was a corrupted, fragmented transmission of universal truth. A garbled beacon. And the stele itself, you knew it then, with a chilling certainty, it was not Egyptian. It was an Atlantean key, the cryptic message from Aiwass, the frequency lock of the 666 number. It was all pointing to a singular, immense source of knowledge. Thoth, you thought, the name forming unbidden in your mind. The emerald tablets, Atlantis. The pieces clicked into place with a terrifying clarity. The stele, this seemingly Egyptian painting, was a remnant of that lost civilization, recarved or adapted into Egyptian iconography to protect it, to hide its true power in plain sight. The hieroglyphs, the numerical code of 666, were not random. They were a frequency lock, a specific vibratory harmonic, based on the sophisticated numerological principles and energy grids of that lost civilization, a cosmic key. Rose's sensitivity wasn't possession. It was a dormant bloodline, a latent memory tuning into Thoth's beacon, a genetic echo of ancient Atlantean lineage that allowed her to be a direct receptor for these fragmented transmissions. This explained her trances, her uncanny accuracy, her strange utterances. She was unknowingly channeling a primal intelligence, a cosmic truth, now being distorted through the temporal veil. Aiwass seemed to acknowledge your sudden profound understanding. You see, the threads connect, the source awaits, the sunken temple, the verdant truth, awaits the seeker, the seed of the new aeon, not through dictation, but through direct communion, for the whole of the law. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the internal conversation ceased. The overwhelming presence receded, and the profound mental experience, which had felt like an eternity, had transpired in the span of a single fleeting second in the external world. Crowley, however, was in a state of ecstatic revelation, oblivious to your inner turmoil. He transcribed the final words of Aiwass, his pen scratching furiously. He spoke of the new aeon, a coming age of self-sovereignty and liberated will. He paused, looking at the transcription, a strange light in his eyes. Aiwass, he murmured, a messenger of Horus, yes, but the sheer force, the raw, unbound will, one could almost mistake it for Lucifer, the light-bringer, the spirit of rebellion and gnosis. A powerful force indeed. And it was in this fervor, amidst the dictation of the mysterious voice, that he declared the central maxim of this new spiritual current: "Do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law." He spoke of it as a complete religious and philosophical system, and in a moment of inspired pronouncement, he named it Thelema. His words resonated with a fierce conviction, promising a path of personal liberation and divine fulfillment. Rose's role, meanwhile, continued to deepen, her unconscious connection to the ancient current growing stronger. She continued to speak phrases she shouldn't know, words that felt alien and impossibly old, and would often draw ancient, unfamiliar glyphs unconsciously, sketching them on any available surface. These were not mere doodles, they were fragments of a forgotten language, an ancient celestial cartography. One evening, after another intense session with the stele and the dictates of Aiwass, Rose collapsed into a profound, exhausted sleep. You and Crowley found her slumped over a table, a piece of parchment clutched in her hand. Upon it, Scrawled in an intricate flowing script you recognized from your studies of ancient universal symbols, was a map. It was not a geographical map of any known land, but a cosmic diagram, a navigational chart pointing towards a submerged location, clearly marked with the symbols of the sun and ancient architecture. The title, faintly visible, was a rendering of what could only be the Temple of the Sun. Crowley's eyes widened as he studied the map, a grim realization dawning. This points to a place lost to time," he whispered, his voice tinged with awe and frustration. "A place that exists only in legend, beyond the reach of any mortal vessel, any expedition, submerged for millennia." He looked at you, his gaze sharpening, a new purpose igniting in his eyes. "But not beyond your reach, is it? Your unique capabilities. Your device. This map, researcher, is for you. It points to the Temple of the Sun, the resting place of the tablets themselves. You are the only one who can unlock this next stage, to go where no man has gone since the Great Deluge. This is the ultimate quest. This is where the origins of Thelema and perhaps all true mystical knowledge lie." He looked at you, a profound invitation in his gaze, holding out the map. The ancient impossible journey to Atlantis, to the true emerald tablets, lay before you. Your pocket watch, a steady pulse against your palm, seemed to resonate with the map's energies, recognizing the temporal leap it demanded. Will you answer the call to seek the ultimate source of ancient wisdom? Your decisions have led you to a path you must now follow. Place your pocket watch upon the map, signaling your commitment to journey to the Temple of the Sun in the legendary lost city of Atlantis, and there, seek the emerald tablets of Thoth.